Hey, this is Brendan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and today I want to review Reign of Assassins, starring Michelle Yeoh and Wang Xueqi. I apologize if I got the second name pronunciation incorrect. It's directed by Su Chao-pin and co-directed by John Woo, and my understanding is that the reason John Woo is credited as co-director is because he was a producer on the film, and he was giving so much advice on location that they decided to credit him as co-director. So one of the challenges of the movie, I think, is to determine when you're watching it how much of this is John Woo and how much is the other director. It's a wuxia film. It's written in the style of a Gulong story. I don't believe it's based on any Gulong books, but when I was looking it up, they said that they were going for that Gulong feel of having a lot of characters in a kind of mystery and investigative sort of suspense type setting. Um, the plot line is set during the Ming Dynasty, and Michelle Yeoh plays uh, uh, an assassin who is working for a gang or a group called Darkstone, and her character's name is Drizzle. All of the characters kind of have fairly easy names to follow along with. They usually have descriptive names in the subtitles, so that makes it pretty easy to keep track of everybody. And they all work for a guy named Wheel King, who is a really great villain. Again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but his name is Wang Shu, and he just did a really phenomenal job in this movie. So the plot line is that she's with this group, and they're trying to track down uh, this mummified corpse of the Bodhidharma monk, and the reason why is that it's supposedly there's like a kung fu manual written in it, or there's some powers that it has that it can bestow upon people that possess it, and the leader of their group really wants it for some reason, and they end up acquiring half of it at a prime minister's residence, and she ends up killing his son, but she takes the half and flees on her own. And as she's fleeing, she meets a monk. I forget in one version of it that I saw, he has an actual name. In another version, they just call him Wisdom. So I don't know. I don't know if it's that the name means that, or if they just decided to put that in the subtitles. But I'm just going to call him Wisdom just to make it easy. And so she meets this monk named Wisdom, and they spend, I think, about 3 months together, and he identifies some holes in her training. Like, he says that there are four moves that she that are weak points in her sword play, and she ends up killing him. It's not entirely clear if she was intending to or not, but they fight, and he tells her that he's going to go and enter a monastery, and she's not too fond of this idea. They fight, and she ends up stabbing him, and he attains enlightenment the moment that she kills him. And so after that, she's sort of disenchanted with the whole martial world. She goes to a doctor who gives her like a really sort of very primitive plastic surgery to reconstruct her face so that she can have a new face and a new life. And she takes the body and goes to to another region of the country, and then tries to live the normal life of a cloth merchant. And she also ends up going to the I believe the master of wisdom, and explaining the situation to him, and he kind of instructs her and tells her that she can now start a new life. And then she ends up meeting a courier who also is a recent arrival in the city that she's moved to, and I believe his name was Ashung, and so they meet, they fall in love, they get married, and everything's nice except her past with this group sort of returns, and she ends up having to work with them again to acquire second half of the body in order to get them off her back. There's a whole thing leading up to it where there's like a bank robbery, and she basically reveals that she's this martial arts expert, and her husband eventually ends up accepting it. And I don't want to give too much away of the plot, but basically, her past comes back to haunt her, and a lot of surprises are revealed over the course of that. And if I reveal them, I think it would ruin the film for people. But I think it's really done well. It definitely has that Gulong sort of surprise and mystery involved. And I just want to apologize. I'm doing this video before my wife goes to work, so if you hear water running in the background, that's what that's about. Um, so she ends up having to deal with the group that she used to belong to. She works with them, and then naturally there's a big fight, and the group has replaced her with a new woman who's even more vicious and evil, and she and so so she ends up having to fight her as well as her old allies basically. So that's the essential storyline. It's basically, in my mind, it's basically kind of a love story. I think it's a love story and a mystery with a really nice plot that revolves around the MacGuffin of this mummified monk. And it's simple, but it's also complicated in that it has a lot of characters. But you never feel overwhelmed by them. Sometimes when these films have a lot of characters, you can get a little dizzy keeping track of them. That is not the case with this one. It's very easy to keep track of all the characters, and they just add a lot of texture to it. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about this film, and again, I'm not a film expert. I didn't study film. I just am a fan of martial arts movies. But I got the sense that there was a lot going on here, especially when I went and watched it the second time. The first time, I just thought, oh my God, this is beautiful fight choreography. This is, I love Michelle Yeoh. I think she's I think she's incredible, and she always brings like her A game to these kinds of endeavors. She's not the sort of actor where you feel that the martial arts is ever being phoned in. And I believe this was after a long period where she hadn't been in many martial arts movies. I'd have to go and check, but I'm pretty sure there was quite a gap between this and her previous one. But she does a great job, and the guy who plays the villain is outstanding, just in terms of the acting as the villain, and the fight choreography is beautiful. It's just so it's very poetic in the way it's done. I thought that it was some of the most gorgeous and graceful fight choreography I've seen. And it's also got that sort of intensity to it. So it's not like it's all dance like. It just has that dance like quality, but it's still very vicious. And but beyond the fight choreography, the second time I saw it, I realized there's all this stuff going on. Like all these things get mirrored throughout the movie, and all the characters, or at least most of them, end up coming full circle in some way. And so you have a lot of things that repeat, and there's kind of and like I said, the fight scenes were like poetry, but the visuals of the movie, I felt, and again, I'm not a film guy, I'm not an art guy, so maybe I'm just seeing something I want to see, but I felt like there was like a visual rhyming going on. And it was very striking because I was really noticing it the second time I watched the movie. I didn't even pick up on it the first time, and then the second time, like, oh wait a second, there's that stone bridge again. Oh wait, there's that. There are these images that keep repeating, and these and just the way it's and I'm sure somebody could sort of take it apart better than I could. But once I noticed that, I was very intrigued by it. So I think it was the fight choreography for me is obviously one of the main reasons to see a movie like this. That's the big draw for me, and this delivers, and it delivers in a way. You hear a lot of complaints about more recent martial arts films, whether it's the overuse of CGI or, and I do think there was some CGI in this film, but this feels like a real classic wuxia movie. This really works. This is one that I would pair up with any of my favorites over the last several decades. Some of the more recent martial arts and wuxia movies, I might like them. I might, and there are a few that have been really stand out. But a lot of times I like them, and there's this caveat that, but it doesn't quite get to the level of a film from the '90s or from the '70s or whatever. There's just something that's not there anymore that used to be, and this doesn't feel like that. This feels like a really genuine wuxia film. The mystery is great. The love story is really interesting. I think that's a really important part of what makes the film work. The love story, you're really interested in it, and it really carries the movie. And the relationship that they develop is not only is it not only is their relationship interesting, but as things get revealed, um, if you go back and you watch it in a second or a third time, you notice details that they're kind of laying the groundwork for, and that's another thing that is, I think, really important about this movie. They lay there's a foundation almost brick by brick, literally brick by brick. Like that's a almost a visual motif in the movie. But they lay all the groundwork for all the stuff that comes later, and I really appreciated that, especially when I went back and rewatched it. And I was like, oh, they're setting themselves up for this stuff down the road. Some movies do that, but this just you just really notice they're doing it in a lot of different places, and it really stands out. And the music is great. There's actually it features a Sa Ding Ding song called Hua, and I'm gonna link to a music video of that song because I think it'll give you a sense of what the movie looks like. And if you watch that, hopefully you'll be interested enough to go and check out the film. And the villain too. The villain is a I'm going to give a little bit of plot away. I'm not going to give out too much, but I'm going to give just a tiny little spoiler. So if you don't want to any plot reveal, just don't, turn it off at this point. But the main villain, Wheel King, is a eunuch, and it's not really revealed that he's a eunuch till later in the movie. But he doesn't want to be a eunuch, and the reason he wants this body is because he believes that the Bodhi monk was a eunuch himself who was able to reverse the procedure through the use of the kung fu that he had developed, and he wants to learn that kung fu and master it, and then no longer be a eunuch. And he desperately, wants to reverse the process so that he can have a family and all that. And the guy who plays him he's. I mean, there's a lot of eunuch villains in wuxia. This was one of the best ones. I would say one of the best since at least the first Dragon Gate Inn movie. He's sinister and evil, and he's scary and he's humorous, but there's also like a little bit of soul to him. You feel for him the same way you feel for Bridget Lin in Swordsman 2 or something. He's that kind of a character, and so I really found him compelling. I found him interesting, and again, so I have to get going, so I don't want to ramble for too long, but I thought this was a great movie. I think it rivals some of the greatest wuxia movies that have been done, and it's definitely worth checking out. If you're a fan of John Woo, you should definitely see it. Again, he's co-director. I don't know how much of it is his work versus the other guy, but he did do another wuxia film that I've talked about in the past, Last Hurrah for Chivalry, and this definitely is up there with that. I mean, this was a good movie. I really enjoyed it, and it held up to multiple viewings, which to me is always the gold standard of, is this a good film? I might be impressed initially, but if I go back and rewatch it and I lose interest, then I can't really say it's a great film. This one, I can rewatch it a number of times and I still find new things that interest me, and it's still enjoyable. So again, the film is Reign of Assassins, and I think it came out in 2010. It's a little bit hard to get now, but I think you can still get your hands on it, and you might be able to watch it, like rent it at Amazon Prime streaming or something. So, all right, again, I will talk to you later, and I will have some updates on what we've been working on at Bedrock Games. Until then, I'll talk to you later.